afternoon, all of you. We will continue with the history chapter Nazism and the Rise of Hitler. So, we have had just one class of this particular chapter. A quick recap of that. Okay, we read the story of a boy. How old was that boy?
Mom,
Mom,
11.
11 years old.
Okay, what was his name?
Mom,
Helmet.
Helmet. Okay, and uh, so he overhears his parents discussing something serious. What were his parents discussing?
They were discussing about killing the whole family or killing himself only.
All right, so he heard them that they were talking about that whether it is the right time to kill the entire family or he should commit suicide alone. Then what happened?
Ma'am, then the boy and his father went to the forest for one last time, and then the father shot himself, and the boy saw his father's red uniform with covered in blood.
Okay, and as a result of that, what happened?
Ma'am, he did not eat food at his house because he thought that his mother was poisoning the food to kill him.
All right. So he refused to eat food at his home for the following 9 years because he was so traumatized and he was afraid that his mother might poison him. All right. So we have seen that Helmut's father, now he had been a Nazi and a supporter of Adolf Hitler. That we have done, and we have also seen that what did Hitler wanted? He wanted to make Germany into a
mighty power.
Okay, he wanted to make Germany into a mighty power, and there was one more ambition. What was that?
Mom, he wanted to conquer all of Europe.
Okay, so he wanted to conquer all of Europe, and then we did a little thing that in May 1945, Germany they surrendered to the Allies, and then war was over, and international military tribunal it was set up at Nuremberg, and that was to prosecute or punish the Nazi war criminals for the crimes that they had committed, and they were crimes for peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Then we also had a look at what were these crimes against humanity that brought worldwide condemnation for Germany, and then we saw that under the shadow of the Second World War, Germany at one side they had waged which war?
Second one.
Okay.
Genocidal war.
All right,
Yes, it.
genocidal war. And what was this? Genocidal basically means racial killing or racial massacre. And they killed, they mass murdered selected group of innocent civilians of Europe. And we also saw that they killed so many, and not only they killed Jews, Gypsies, Polish civilians, but also Germans also who were mentally or physically disabled. All right, and so the Nuremberg Tribunal they sentenced only 11 Nazis to death. All right, and many others they were given life imprisonment. So the penalty they got, but the penalty was far short of the crimes that they had committed, and we saw that they did not wanted to why the penalty was so less, because they did not want it to be as harsh on Germany as they were after the First World War. And then we started with the First World War, and we saw that Germany during the early years of the 20th century it was a powerful empire, and it fought the war alongside Austrian Empire and against the Allies, and basically all wanted to make some quick gains from this war. No one knew that this will stretch on, the war will stretch on, it will become world war, and it will ultimately drain Europe of all its resources. Okay, and so Germany in the beginning they made initial gains, and they occupied which two countries?
France and Belgium.
France and Belgium. Okay, but the Allies they were strengthened in 1917 by the entry of which country?
US.
US. Okay, and so they defeated Germany and the Central Powers in November 1918. So now Germany, Imperial Germany means at that time it was ruled by a king, monarch, emperor. They lost, and the emperor, he had to step down, and now it was time, it was an opportunity for the parliamentary parties to again recast or reorganize, reestablish politics in Germany. So, the National Assembly, they met at Weimar, and they established a democratic constitution with a federal structure. Okay, federal structure. What does federal structure means? Federal form of government. That day also I told you. What is federal form of government?
Ma'am, a form of government in which the powers are divided in various levels.
Okay, all right. So, uh, after that, they had, the National Assembly met, a democratic constitution was set up, and federal form of government they adopted, and now representatives, they were elected to the German parliament. What was the name of German parliament?
Ma'am, Reichstag.
Reichstag. All right, and that was on the basis of limited votes or votes for all.
Ma'am, equal vote.
Equal and universal votes.
All right. Okay. So, on the basis of universal adult franchise. But we studied that this republic, now though it was a democratic form of government, now you were earlier ruled by an emperor, but now you have a democratic form of government. Alright, that means you can elect your own leaders, but still the people were not happy. They did not, like this new government well, and it was not received well by its own people. Now, why the people did not accept this new government which was formed? Yes, why they did not receive it well? Any idea? See, it is written that it would not received well by its own people because of the terms that it was forced to accept. Now, after Germany's defeat in the First World War, so the terms of the peace treaty that they were forced to accept, that is why, it was not accepted well by the people. Now, basically what happened, though the emperor, Imperial Germany, they had participated, but now they were placing all the blame on this Weimar Republic. That no, it is you people who signed that peace treaty. If you wouldn't have signed that peace treaty, then obviously our condition would have been better. Alright, so that is why it was not received well, and so this peace treaty at Versailles with the Allies, it was a peace, but still it was very harsh and humiliating for the Germans. Let's see how. Germany lost its overseas colony. So whatever overseas colonies they had, they lost it all. They lost a tenth of its population, 13% of its territories, means not only its colony but its own territory. Out of that also 13% they lost. They lost 75% of its iron. Now you know how important this metal is. And they lost 75% of the iron and 26% of its coal. So 26%, these resources are so important. And they lost 75% of iron, 26% of coal to France, Poland, Denmark and Lithuania. Then the Allied powers, they demilitarized Germany. Demilitarized Germany to weaken its power. Demilitarized Germany means now Germany was not allowed to have a military. They were not allowed to have troops. Alright, so the Allied powers, they demilitarized, they told Germany, okay, now you will not have a military. Alright, then now you know how important military is for country's defense, and so they were asked not to have a military. Then the war guilt clause, it held Germany responsible for the war and the damages the Allied countries suffered. And the war guilt means as to who was the person, which country was there, which started the war or initiated the war, or because of which country this war, this war was triggered and it went on and became a world war. And so the war guilt clause, it held Germany responsible for this war. And also now, because they started this war, and because of that, the allied power, they have to fight back, and then they also had to suffer so many damages. So Germany was held responsible for the war and for the damages that the allied countries suffered. So Germany was forced to pay compensation amounting to 6 billion livre. Now, you remember French Revolution?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
all right. What was the, there also you studied about livre? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So here, see, it is 6 billion. All right, 6 billion. And now, basically what happened was, Germany, now they had to pay so much compensation. All right, I think it is pound, right? What do you think? Yes, have you checked? See this? Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
All right. So now, they had to pay such a huge compensation, and then on top of that, the Allied armies, they also occupied the resource rich Rhineland for much of 1920s. Now imagine Germany's condition. They participated in the war, they ended up on the loser side. You are in a war. It was not just simply any war, it was world war. All right, already you have lost so much, so many of your resources. All right, your manpower also. Okay, all your overseas colonies are gone from which you can get money. All right, raw materials, everything that gone. You have lost a tenth of your population. 13% of whatever your country was, you lost even that. Then 75% iron, 26% coal, and then you don't have any, even your military. Then now you have to pay 6 billion. All right, even as compensation. And then on top of that, if that was not more, then the allied armies, they came and occupied their resource rich area. Now this Rhineland, it was very rich in resources, and now, they lost everything. So at least from that area they could have got something. But now the allied powers, they came and they occupied it for much of the 1920s. And so, this was the clause, the peace treaty at Versailles, and many Germans, they held this new Weimar Republic for not only the defeat in the war, but also the disgrace at Versailles. Obviously, we know it is not correct. Obviously, it was not the fault of this Weimar Republic. They did not do anything. All right, they were forced to sign this treaty, but many Germans, they thought that no, this Weimar Republic, it is responsible not only for the defeat in the war, but also for the disgrace that we had to suffer at Versailles. Okay, now let's see the effects of the war. The war, it has a very devastating impact on the entire continent of Europe, both financially, because we saw that Europe, it was, drained of all its resources, and also psychologically. So very bad impact both ways. And what happened, from a continent of creditors, Europe, it turned into one of debtors. Earlier they used to lend, but now they had to borrow. All right. And but unfortunately, the infant, why Weimar Republic is called infant? Because, this republic was just now born. All right, this democratic form of government with this new republic, it was just born, so it was just infant. And so this infant Weimar Republic, now it was made to pay for the sins of the old empire. The emperor, he participated in the war, but now this Weimar Republic, they had to pay for the sins which were committed by the old empire. And the Weimar Republic, they carried the burden of war guilt and national humiliation. Now, this Weimar Republic, they not only carried the burden of war guilt, because, if you remember that the Allied, the war guilt clause, they held Germany responsible for the war. So not only, they carried this burden of war guilt that Germany, they started this war, but also national humiliation, means they were humiliated and disgraced by this peace treaty at Versailles, and they were financially also crippled. Means, who is a crippled person?
And who does not have legs?
All right. Okay. So, basically, financially also now they were crippled. Why? Because they had to pay so much compensation. Means now they had to think about their own country, but on top of that, they had to pay such a huge amount as war compensation. All right. And so, those who supported, so basically what we can say is that most of the Germans, they were anti Weimar Republic. But those who supported the Weimar Republic, like the socialists, Catholics, and Democrats, now they became targets of attack in the conservative national circles. So people now even attacked those who stood for or who supported the Weimar Republic, and so all those who supported the Weimar Republic, like socialists, Catholics, and Democrats, they were mockingly, insultingly, they were called as November criminals. Why November criminals? Because this peace treaty was signed in November. So that is why they were called as November criminals. And now this mindset that it was this Weimar Republic that had done all this, now this mindset had a major impact on the political developments of the early 1930s, and as we will soon see, so this mindset that, it was this Weimar Republic which is responsible not only for the defeat in the war but also for our disgrace. All right. And everyone who supported them, they were also targeted and they were called as November criminals. Now, the First World War, it left a very deep imprint on European society as well as polity, means as well as politics. So this world war, obviously any war, it has a huge impact, but here we are talking not about any war, we are talking about world war. So this First World War, it led a very deep imprint on European society as well as polity, means how society was constructed after that, what changes were brought about in the society, in the thinking mindset of the people, and also in the politics of the country. Now soldiers, they came to be placed above civilians. So now more importance was given to soldiers, and politicians and publicists, they laid a great stress, great importance for men to be aggressive. Now they wanted people, they wanted men that they should be aggressive and they should be strong and masculine. Why? So that they can fight back. So politicians and publicists, now they laid stress that men, they need to be aggressive and strong and masculine. And the media, they also glorified trench life. Trench life means military life or army life. How the people, they live in trenches. You know what is a trench? Yes, class. Have you seen those movies of war and all that? Have you seen any movie? People, they dig trenches in the ground, and there, they hide in the trenches around, and from there they shoot at their enemy. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So the media, here they glorified trench life, means they talked about in such, you could say, in very glorious manner about the life of those who are in army or in military. But the truth was much different. What was the truth? That the soldiers, they led miserable life in these trenches. Now, you are fighting, you are at war, you are fighting with your enemy, and obviously, you are there with your people fighting against the enemy. You all right, and so you're hiding and fighting, and then, obviously shelling takes place from both sides, many of your people would be killed, and so their dead bodies are also there. and you are still alive, and you have to keep fighting in that manner only. While the rats are there, they are feeding on those dead corpses, they are feeding on those dead bodies, and there also, in spite of all that, you have to be there fighting for your country. And so, the truth was that the soldiers, they led very miserable lives in these trenches. And not only they had to survive like that with the soldiers feeding on the dead bodies, but also they had to face poisonous gases. And then obviously an enemy is also firing from the opposite side, so they have to face the enemy shelling also. And you are fighting, you are seeing that people with whom you work, you fight, now they are being killed. So your own battalion is being killed, they are reducing, all right, in numbers. And but the media, they talked about it in such glorious terms. Why? Because they wanted the people to go and to fight, to take part in the war, and to go and join military and army. Okay, now aggressive war propaganda and national honor occupied center stage in the public sphere. And so in public meetings and everywhere also, people, they talked about war, that aggressive war, and they talked about that how that is important, and they talked about the honor of the nation, that people, they should go and join the army and the military. And then they should even be ready, they should be very aggressive and strong and masculine, and be ready to lay down their lives for the country. And so people, they were talking in public about all these things. And in this time, popular support, it grew for conservative dictatorship that had recently came into being. And in that time, the people, they also, some of the people, they also started to support dictatorship. All right, why? Because if you have a democratic form of government, if you want to pass any law, obviously there are so many stages, so many people have to be consulted. But if you have a dictator, obviously just one person, he can take any decision, all right, fast, quick and all. And so now support grew for dictatorship, and this concept at that time only had come into being. And democracy at this particular time was a very young and fragile idea, fragile, which could easily be broken. Now democracy had just came into being in Germany, and this could not survive the instability of this interwar Europe. And so democracy at this time, all right, because it was still young, all right, this Weimar Republic was just born, this democratic republic, it was just born, so it was still young, and it was very fragile. And so it was not able to face and survive the conditions which were going on in Europe at this particular time. All right, so that is all the time we have for today. Have you all understood what we have done today? Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.